So we are here today with Gordon Clark, who is reporting live from Patagonia, which is, I think, maybe our most remote interview to date on Legs, which is great. I'm gonna
Yeah,
just
here we go.
let Gordon introduce himself real quick. So, who are you? Where are you located now? And yeah, just a short background on who you are.
Yeah, Gordon Clark. I am originally based in Los Angeles. So Los Angeles is where it all is down. But I'm points and kind of a gateway to Patagonia. So this is not typical. This is just funny timing, happenstance. Down here for kind of a running thing, and I was like, yeah, dude, let's zoom, and I don't have to forge some fake backdrop. I could just have a kick-ass backdrop, which it's a bit of a wild day. So yeah, little gray and rainy. Hello. Um, there's a lot of it down here right now. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've been a part of a cool run scene now for a while. I've not been a lifelong runner, been a lifelong athlete for sure, and somebody who puts a lot of his identity, I suppose, through sport,
Sure.
the connections through sport, and letting that be a discipline and driver. But I'd say, yeah, 8, 9 years ago, maybe after moving out to LA, just kind of fell into the fold as a lot of us did in LA, kind of organized
Yeah.
through NRC, Nike Run Club, and then sort of this explosion of different run crews and clubs, and me still kind of working with Coach Blue Benedum at the time, trying to get serious about marathon or just see what the
Yeah.
hell this thing was about, and marveling at how hard the sport was, a sport I think I otherwise kind of laughed at.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're having a little connectivity issue, but we'll try to push through it. We'll try to push through it.
Depending
Um,
on the university. But yeah, it was just mind blowing how I was and really like
um, okay, so I asked this question a lot because as a constant student of life, I think it's important to know that I don't know everything. So, what is an interesting fact that about the world that maybe only you know?
oh damn, doozy right out the gate.
Right out of the gate.
I
That's
don't
what.
like to
Let's
think
get into it.
I don't think I like to know much of anything. I think how little as we kind of matriculate and advance in life, if we're so lucky, the recognition of how little we know. It's always seemingly just when you reach a certain sort of what you think to be an apex, you're kind of knocked back a little bit with the understanding that things are
So
not so
basically,
simple or not as black and white.
yeah. So basically, like you get to you get to a certain level of knowledge, and then all of a sudden you realize that what you know pales in comparison to what's actually out there. So you're just kind of knocked down a peg.
For sure. Especially with running, this sounds a bit of a hot take, but getting away from this whole, the journey is everything. The journey is everything. I think there's been many plays on this, but a little knowledge and I think a little self knowledge could be a dangerous thing. But I think that stemmed from something far, way back. Gosh, who said that under the volcano? Malcolm Lowry. Lowry. But before that, I think it was a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing, and
And yeah, a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing.
things
A
that
lot of
go
knowledge is
nowhere. But
yeah.
yeah.
All right, so kind of
The more
changing
I think I've
gears.
become an expert at something or closer to an expert at something, the more I've recognized how little. It's really just your
I like that.
purview of almost like a flashlight in a cave. And you think
Right.
you're there, you reach that wall, and then whatever, you're offered a lantern, and it's like, oh shit, this thing is far more expansive than I ever would have thought, and so on and so forth. Whatever
Yeah.
things your interest.
All right, so switching gears a little bit. So, part of Legs' sort of mantra is this idea that through running we can become less lonely. And I've been doing a little research on movement and how bodies and motions can lead to sort of a happier mindset, and then eventually overall better mental health. So, outside of running, which you do a lot of, and like we said, it's part of an identity. What else are you doing to keep your body, mind, and soul happy, satiated?
Oh boy. Well, yeah, film for sure. That's kind of what brought me out to Los Angeles. Really, like so many others. I wish it was more exotic a story, but um, we had penned a series, me and a writing partner of mine, and we were doing the whole water bottle meeting thing for I felt like 2 or 3 years in kind of a development purgatory. And it was very much centered around boxing. So I guess there's
Okay.
kind of a lead into running there, and I'm very hands on with something if I'm writing it.
Hmm.
I'm just not that clever, or maybe limiting in imagination to some degree. But
Sure.
I was doing a lot of boxing myself, so I found it interesting once I was really getting exhausted by this entire process and talking about a thing that nobody seemed to be reading and having these fun conversations with people that I felt were going nowhere. But once I was getting into running it, it was a very noticeable parallel, the idea of the boxer to the runner,
Hmm.
both in the preparation for an event 3 or 4 months out, the idea that it's a solitary profession, when in truth there's a massive team, there's a group behind you,
Hmm.
people that are getting you there, and it's all about fine tuning and perfecting for a moment,
Sure.
which I think is one of those things that, at least when I geek about sports, and I'm definitely nutso about sports,
Yeah.
really in general. But when I talk to someone unfamiliar with running, I'm like, that's what's really fascinating to me. The idea that these guys, the not me's of the world, the professional, have to perform on a day.
Yeah.
They don't get, that was at least kind of a seedling of interest. But yeah, and then I'm just always learning, trying to hack my own proclivities, if you will,
Nice.
things I'm interested in, trying to shatter those, and just always stay intrigued and interested. That's always the kind of the tough thing, but yet not. You
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean? There's the
I do.
mental hook.
Yeah. All right. So, one of the things I've been interested to, and it sounds like you've got a pretty good handle on this just from the way you're talking about, just engaging with life and being a constant learner and just always sort of understanding that you don't have an understanding of what's going on all the time. Um, do you feel that being happier with yourself makes it easier to be a part of a community at large?
I guess I'll go to, I won't so much, I don't think have an answer as much as give my take on how I've dealt with community and kind of a burgeoning. I think what's really unique with LA is I have somehow seen this explosion of growth in a community, with various run clubs and race types and just general running enthusiasm. I don't think I was really searching for anything when I was bumping into a lot of the community, which might sound kind of odd. Like I was intrigued enough to run with people and observe and monitor it, but it's, to me, it's always a challenging thing of finding, like, what am I doing? A lot are you looking for workout partners? Are you looking for people to hang out with? Because I'll always complain that I just don't have enough hours in the day, type of thing. There's a sense of validation and feeling that I see him and I can identify with him,
Yeah.
right? And I'm gonna run hard. I'm gonna charge hard. Um, like a lot of the run clubs in LA that began as really social things. And to me, that just didn't really, that's not why I linked up with Blue and started running. I wanted to see the marathon as like the ultimate test of
Yeah.
like the perfect distance. It's a buzz saw. You can't just muscle your way through it. There's science that's involved with it. There's just, you could just whittle your life away and try to fine tune and perfect, and you may get it. The white whale, right? This is
Yeah.
cool. I enjoy now that there's so many people that are into running.
Yeah.
But to me, that felt like the, I don't know, kind of why I'm showing up or keep showing up at these things. And then some of it, I was allowed to captain, our Koreatown Run Club for on a
Yeah.
long distance. So that was really cool. And then so there's like an obligation or a want to do a little bit, which I was trash at. I was so ass. I was like the worst. I just don't
Yeah.
like waking up early. So it's kind of the accidental like community that I felt that I was building within the community, like the micro community of guys that did want to go a little quicker. And yeah, we need that, right? If you want to be it, you got to see it first. And I'm sure that
Yeah.
struck me at some point where I said, like, I'm not a runner. And then I saw the right type of person. It could be whatever, Black Roses or Blue or some of these other people. And I was like, okay, there are some tattooed, kind of wild looking people out there that seem a little more irreverent, seem to drink beer, do enjoy going out, that aren't taking this too aren't approaching it with so much austerity. They're like, fuck it, I just want to burn the candle at both ends. Let's
Yeah.
see what happens. And that
Yeah.
more met my thing.
Hmm. Especially with the fact that community is kind of looked to as this, it's almost like a generic term, right? Like it's, oh, I'm going to join a community, I'm going to join a run club, I'm going to join XYZ, whatever it is. And a lot of that can be very almost overbearing, or what's the word I'm trying to look for here, is like almost exclusive, or just scary, honestly, to think about joining a larger community, because it is so in your face and it can be so overwhelming. But then when you start to pick apart the community and find those micro communities within where you actually belong, I think that it does offer, like you were saying, like a more chance for more active participation, other versus just I'm part of a community for in name only, right? Like I think that there's a lot of people that like join a run club or become part of something bigger because it gives them the feeling that they are part of something, but it's mainly just like I wear the colors, and then you can like take one step further and actually wear
Yeah,
the
yeah.
and participate.
I think once to use almost like an analogy, like you step into that building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I am a firm believer of, you know, showing up.
Mm-hmm.
That gets thrown around a lot with
Yeah,
endurance and, for sure, marathon as well and athletic. Same thing. 90% of it is just showing up.
yeah, yeah,
And it's, we hear all these things. There's Bartlett's, there's books of these quotations, but at the end of the day, you still got to go somewhere, be uncomfortable with a bunch of people you don't know, which almost in the podcast I was talking about goes against our animal instinct of like, here's comfort, here's what I know, my security, my little tribe. I'm gonna
yeah,
go here and have to introduce myself again and then find your little micro community within the community.
yeah,
So yeah, that's what I think is a fascinating thing. That's what I'm so impressed with, and maybe an example of why the running community does just kick ass. We're going through this hyper growth renaissance period is one, the pixelation, these robots and so many of these relationships. This you got to show up, this you got to
yeah,
say hi, this you got to find your pace, this you got to know where you're uncomfortable,
yeah,
how you're uncomfortable. Personalities may not match. Just because you're a part of this thing doesn't mean you're going to love everybody within this group, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
at the same time, there's a big unifier of we're all runners and we're all into this thing. And that's allowed me to have a lot of wild conversations with people I might not have bumped into that I don't totally agree with, but we have this thing as a common ground. So that's really where I drink the Kool-Aid. I'm like, well, show up to Run Club, meet these people, put the shoes on. Who knows what'll happen? Don't have the
yeah,
answers for what's going to happen, but it's better than you not.
yeah.
100%. And
Wow.
much more fulfilling than you just walking out the door and lacing up the shoes and going, man. I mean,
Yeah,
that's great. And I love that. And that's 90% of my running.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
truthfully. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm going to listen to a podcast.
yeah,
I'm listening to NPR. I'm listening to the news. I want to focus on this thing, or I just want to hear my breath. I want to make sure everything's good, or I'm
yeah,
rehabbing an injury. But the social stuff is, I'm here. Let's check in. What are you
yeah,
doing? Wow. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
let's not talk about running because we talked about running for 2 years. And yeah, what's your next race? Cool, exciting. How's life? What do you?
Again, I think there's a larger story in that, especially when you consider like the different personalities. And I remember like a year ago, I was learning about like the forums on letsrun.com, and just kind of seeing some of the vitriol that people were spitting at each other on. I mean, it's a message board and it's the internet, so obviously it's going to happen. But I was like, when you peel it back, and it's like we're just runners. Like we're just running. That's pretty, like I get it. Like there's an intensity to it, and like everyone's got a different kind of pace and a different thing. And I'm not like saying one is better than the other, or like relax, because everyone's passionate. But also it's like relax.
Yeah, it's such a one of the things with running that I find funny and amusing is some of the sports I'd come from are very aggressive.
Sure,
Shit
boxing.
talking is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah,
It's mean. It's awful. Yeah, and honestly, at the same time, boxing actually is one of the sweeter sports. People I thought were people who really excel from very young ages have to be in that sport. That's the priority. There's you
mm,
going to high school and being a fighter since age of 5 isn't making a big difference for you. You are like a gymnast. You have to be focused on that craft. Your musculature is built around the craft. That are just the most violent by trade are also ones that want to avoid it at all costs. But I think what's really funny with kind of the running community is you have seemingly like there's an intellectual difference, kind
mm-hmm,
of, right? I think there's something about the people that enjoy running, obviously a ton of writers, thinkers, ponderers, um, and just the craft itself allows you're not playing a game, right? I'm sure there's 1,000 things going on in the brain. Running, you can just hit cruise control and just think about it all.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great. I would say it's my, our Libre might have coined it, but by, moving meditation. I'm a terrible meditator,
Yeah.
but when I run, I can actually just, so much is quieted, so much. But I think runners can be pretty nasty, and I've stayed away from like a Let's Run forum. I've heard all the nasty things, but something that people think we're missing in running is the shit talking, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
Jakob Ingebrigtsen, like going back and forth, and people are taking their sides and shots, and I'm like, it's kind of what the sport needs. Talk
Sure.
about
Yeah.
pre all day. I know you're in Oregon, right?
Yeah. In
We
Portland. Yeah.
celebrate Pre up and down. If Pre were here, he would be the most canceled human on planet. Can you imagine him with a Twitter account? Holy hell, he'd be done in a week. I don't know who was hearing his quotes and writing them down. They were taking him to pen. They were like, Jesus. He said he has one pace, suicide pace, and today's a great day to die. What a psychopath.
Yeah.
We still romanticize and nostalgia. And of course, the tragedy is part of it, I believe. But like, so you like the things that made him, which he wasn't the best runner of his time, but we know the pre-name. So
Yeah.
you kind of need that thing. Again, I'm presenting more like questions than giving any type of answer, but I think running needs to come to terms with, you want to say some shit, say some shit. It's great.
Yeah.
We could all be fine with it. We could all be comfortable inside of a sport. I remember watching Michael Johnson against Powell. I knew nothing about sprinting when I was a
Sure.
kid, but in the 90s when those two were going at it and they,
Yeah.
made their own, that's great. It was great for the sport.
Yeah.
It sold stuff. And guarantee there's some runners that saw that, or some kids that were like, I want to be a sprinter. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's kind of, it's a
Totally.
weird balance. You almost need a kind of vitriol, but then maybe an acceptance of like, okay, like, again, we're all just running
There's a
here.
level.
Most of us are
Yeah.
just trying
Yeah.
to get.
Yeah. No, I like also what you were touching on too with what you use your runs to do. So that's one of the things I'm always curious about when you're running by yourself. Or I use my time usually to like win a lot of arguments in my head, like things I should have said. I always think of like what else goes through your head on a run.
I'll be honest, like I run hot most of the time. I've always just been a hot tempered, just child, the whole nines. I'm usually trying to reconcile something,
Yeah.
building up an argument. And maybe like you're saying, like, yeah, I'm forming this argument, but it really just, there's no real plan, I'd say. Definitely hitting a more advanced age, like there's a lot of paying attention to my body. I can't say I've really gone after anything too hard, so it's not really, my week's not structured with like, okay, double threshold,
Right.
here's your
Yeah.
tempo, here's gonna be your long run. I got like the basic tenets of my running, 5 to 6 times a week, but
Sure.
sometimes I just want to be carried away in something else.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar season, all the clickbaity stuff, so I'm listening to a lot of weird podcasts with just filmmakers
Nice.
and finding inspiration. But I'd say that actually prevails the most. So what I'd say, I'm running. I've always thought I'm a seeker. That's just a word I would just,
I like it.
stamp on me.
Yeah.
Seeking some information, seeing a new neighborhood. I'm during the pandemic, I got into a, kind of a running errands thing. So just
Nice.
seeing what I could do, what I could pick up, stuff I had to do if I could just do it on foot, which doesn't always work, but
Yeah.
I've picked up some pretty ludicrous things. I did that today. I bought a really wild knife. I think it's called a Falco. It's from a Argentinian cowboy, but they would always have a wild knife. I've always seen them. I've been to Argentina, I suppose, once, but and I've just loved them. I've loved the look of them. It's just a cool cowboy knife. There's like 6 or 7 things, but yeah, it was like a 3 mile run, and then there was a big onyx thing. It's a gift, but it's
Right.
heavy. Like I'm
Yeah.
running with this thing, and
So
I'm
you
like,
got,
this is kind of trash. So they could be a functional run where it's like, let me go run and we're going to the farmer's market. I'll take the train on the way back. But like, so there's
constant
no
seeking.
real set
Yeah.
intention. Kind of just open to whatever's percolating.
It is something, especially if you've got goals and marathons and things in the mix, you start to really burn yourself out. So I feel like when you can have those moments of clarity during recovery runs or whatever it is, even hard runs, I like grab onto them and don't let go. I like find those thoughts and I just like melt myself into them because I know to have these moments of clarity are so I think Christian said it best in his conversational pace was like make it a challenge to spend time with yourself, right? Like we don't get this time to ourselves and you should seek that all the time. So I think that's
Yeah.
what I strive for. Given all the talk about inclusivity and accessibility and all that, there's a lot of new brands coming up. There's a lot of technical equipment being brought out. Like, Do you perceive running as an accessible sport?
Tough one. It's a good one. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, and some of them need to be exercised. So I'm like approaching with caution.
Yeah.
With so much, I'll rewind and say the way I grew up was very, you know, kind of bullish or old fashioned of go take licks until you figure it out. You know, playing basketball parks I probably shouldn't have been playing at, going places I shouldn't have. Those were big teachers for me. Like just being in life. Didn't have, older siblings. I have younger, but for the most part was raised, just on my own. So to me, I'm very much a just go do it. I was talking to a friend about this recently. Like a shirt that Nike made at one point. It just said, "Shut up and run." Like I've been
Mhm.
around so much stuff and with running, or at least seen it, observed it, and it's really odd. I think there's a lot of really valid points that people are making, and representation absolutely is important. It's one of the first things I talk about, right? Like I don't know if I'd be running if I didn't see something that looked an example of what I could try to be like, or something I thought could be a certain way, and then I wanted to explore it.
Right.
So it's absolutely important. I would never say otherwise. I do think to some degree, like everything, it goes through a phase of the right sort of comeuppance, and then sort of overreach follows. And then there's the counterbalance. There's always
Yeah.
the push pull struggle.
Sure.
Again, I try to stay like, out for the most part. I'm like, I'm going to run. If you want to run with me, you can come run with me. That's completely fine and well. But I think what gets you magnify the confusion is when brands, which I think we've all recognized, find financial opportunity to sell the thing, when I don't know how much they really desire that thing that they're suggesting, that their marketing team is suggesting. If we want to see change, again, how many boardrooms are changing of diversity, giving us the diversity and representation that you're screaming is so important of a sport. I'll take it back more into me and like less theorizing, because I don't want to offend anybody 100%. Nothing would make me feel sad. I'm a very anti-bully sort of person. I feel lucky as hell in LA. We're not overtly concerned with diversity. I run with Koreatown Run Club, right?
Right.
There's Good Vibes Track Club that's also predominantly Hispanic, or south of the 10, South Central. There's
Yeah.
Buddha and his Run 100, kind of in a Compton, Inglewood sort of area. It's like there's a lot of diversity in LA. Hell, I mean,
Yeah.
to be blunt, like how I met Christian, funny enough, was a brand for a photo shoot was having trouble finding a white runner in the LA area. That is literally how I met Christian. Is he
Oh,
was the one that was putting it out through some of these clubs, and it happened to be Koreatown. Was like, "Hey man, they're trying to find a white runner." I'm like,
yeah.
"Well, it shouldn't be too hard. I'm not a model, so I don't know. Good luck.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be okay."
Yeah.
And I think a week or two went by, and I had never met Dewey of Koreatown at this point. And he was like, "Hey man," he's like, "I really think you should go out for this because they just are having trouble finding a white dude." And I'm like, "What kind of?" But that's the awesome part about being in LA, where there's all stripes, colors, skill sets, you name it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a great thing that's happening now. I mean, trail is certainly my focus, and I've been lucky to see cool parts of the world,
Yeah.
and met different communities and their approaches to running, and all these things where I say like tag myself with that seeker title. I've just enjoyed seeing more. The more I see, touch, fraternize with cultures and groups I'm unfamiliar with,
Mm-hmm.
it blows my mind. Again, I just feel lucky as all hell just to be able to see a part of the place, how they approach running. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
there's a lot. There's a lot. You know what I mean? I've been lucky
Yeah.
with Koreatown. We've gone to Shanghai. I've met groups in Japan, South Korea, through Nils, the Speed Project, and just some of the crews we've connected with there. Atacama, Chile, Ade Libre, really just blown my mind open. So many windows of creativity, doors of creativity in my mind, and I've connected with superhumans really,
Yeah.
who approach the sport completely different. Wouldn't call it a sport.
Interesting.
It's a way of life. Started with Mexico, and then it was Patagonia before, with them, with some of the Chilean runners. Invited the couple Chilean friends to join our team in Atacama.
Yeah.
Thank God, because they knew how to move about the place well better than we did. But
It's always a
yeah,
good
and I'm
thing.
just constantly inspired and humbled at what they do, and their love of movement, their love of nature, of communing with these things,
Yeah.
respect of animals. It's so much is different,
Yeah.
especially outside of LA. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's really cool to be able to see and touch it. And like I said, I don't really have answers so much as like could point and be like, yeah, see them. They are running monks. They are special. They're doing
Yeah.
some wild stuff over there. And you take
Yeah.
it into your own little blender and process it and say like, how's this going to affect me now?
That's good. I think, yeah, I like that. I
There you
think that
go.
there's a lot of, again, like the little pearls of wisdom within that, regarding the accessibility, but then also like the granularity of how it looks for different people. And I think like there's a really important distinction in there too about running as a sport and running as a lifestyle, the different approaches you can take to
Mm-hmm.
find. It's almost like creating your own accessibility for it, right? Like it's how you want to be or how you want to perceive the activity, either as a sport or as a lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
or as an identity or whatever it might be. I think that there's in that like little microcosm, there's a lot of open doors or doors that can open for different people, when you take off the restrictions of it being one way or the highway.
I mean, that was my approach, was a much more austere, competitive, this is a sport, to the point that I think a lot of people experience, where I kind of got the BQ and ran Boston. I was like, okay, well, this was it. That was the goal. Like, I'm going to do
Right.
this thing. Let's do this thing that everybody wants. Let's go run it. It was remarkable. It was crazy. But, I mean, take the bridge in Darcy, and I'm introduced to the unsanctioned race circuit. I'm like, wow, I'm not looking at my watch at all.
Yeah.
I am navigating streets that are unfamiliar to me. And I feel like, I tell you what place I got, didn't win. You're laughing, you're telling stories. And I was like, wow, I saw the city, a place I had no idea,
Yeah.
in a completely different light, and that bond is so big. And then
Yeah.
just something like Ari Libre, it's like, you're doing a sweat lodge, and you're on top of an ancient volcano at 11,000 feet, 14,000 feet, my goodness, and a part of ceremonies, ancient rituals, and then just movement happens to be the vehicle, you moving with your legs to the next place. And these are people that are still some of my greatest friends, and nobody was running hard, nobody was looking at a watch. And
Yeah.
I think the important thing is, for well, not the important thing, but for those to know, maybe, if for those that might have been like me, that there are these various sects
Right.
of running. And
Yeah.
I think the spirituality, of course, mindfulness, all this is taken off, but it can be a form of you moving and running and being on a mountain and feeling the wind blow through you, watching a red-tailed hawk or something, as I do in kind of my native Los Angeles, just watching this thing, this like
Yeah.
4.5 foot thing, and the way it moves, and just calming. No other thought going through my brain, not thinking
Yeah.
about an email, not thinking about, sure, maybe the fight that I could have lost, or this conversation that I'm just like experiencing. I'm feeling things. And that's for later to figure out maybe what it meant or why I was thinking about those things. But
Right.
that's all through just the simple act of movement, running, and being like,
Yeah.
okay, you got some cool tools.
Yeah.
You got a cool little pack. You're going to stay alive. You get a couple snacks. And I think I came to Patagonia in 2019, right? And one of these runs didn't work out because it was just piss and rain, and we were supposed to, take a boat, and we were going to see penguins and do like a 10K. Instead, we
Yeah.
just ran out of the place we were at. It was just kind of a beat up, rocky road, and it was freezing cold. It was awful to start.
Yeah.
But then we ended on this beach, man, and the waves were so choppy. They weren't coming through in one big swoosh of tide. It was just everything. They were all moving and shimmering at once, as far as you could see. Um, and the sand was being whipped in kind of a way. And the rain was so fierce, but so fine, that it was near, not blinding. Well, if I kind of had my head down and I'm watching the sand rush at me, but then I'm seeing this swirl around my face. And then if I looked up, the waves are moving, and I was like, I laughed. I was
Right.
just giggling like a kid. I was like, "Oh my, this is
What are we
crazy!"
doing? Yeah,
And
totally.
it felt like something. I was like, I'm seeing a foreign planet. Like, this is interstellar.
Oh,
This
yeah. Yeah.
is There's no base. My brain doesn't have a baseline for the images I'm processing right now.
Yeah.
And there was definitely no, like, I don't know, the shit that was going on in my world a week ago. There was just, I'm here. I'm cold. This is ludicrous. What are these visuals right now? Especially just,
Yeah.
again, films by things. There's a lot of like, mind's eye and how it's going to process something, or imagination. I'm like, this had no point of reference. I was like,
Right.
I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sure many of those moments when you're out, especially remotely, and you're just like, there's no watch. Who cares? Who
Yeah,
cares? Like,
yeah,
what am I looking at right now? This is insanity.
yeah.
How many people get to see this? How many people get to like commune with this right here? You know,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. There's
like
no
it's a
like
gift. It's you're
point of
lucky. It's a
reference there.
blessing. Holy crap! Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Blessing, I think, is a good word. And there's no point of reference. It's just the elements, the terrain, the challenge, the realization, the blessing. It forces you to stay in the moment. I think that that's something everyone should be seeking more of, especially this day and age with, influencers and all the shit we're fed 24/7 on social media, and like there's no escape from you can't it's impossible to be alone in the moment anymore. Like Christian was saying, make it a challenge to be alone with yourself. Make it a challenge to find those moments in your day where you have to talk to yourself and you have to deal with who you are as a person without any other inputs. And it's in moments like you're describing with, rain piercing your face and wind howling at your ears that you're like, I'm doing this. I'm doing this. Like this isn't for anyone else. This is just for me.
yeah, man. But you know what's so funny? And that's the beauty of running and just this is a craft or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know if I like to put a word to it, but like the people in our group, we had just met too, maybe
Mhm.
17 hours before, and we're doing some traveling. This is like the first run that we had, and didn't have language. We're just looking at each other, just giggling.
Yeah.
The words came later, maybe around like a little fireside where I was like, "What were you? Oh my god, did you see? No, I didn't. I was just so again, just hacking yourself to become more kid-like. I think
Yeah.
that's something that's of course super important is that curiosity and seeking mentality and idea. It's preternatural to a child, right? It's all
Yeah.
they know. They don't know all the
Yeah.
muck that comes along with everything else. And to maybe what you were saying before, I do recognize even in saying all this that there's a measure of absolutely privilege in that, and I'm lucky for that. And
Sure.
I had a partner at one point, and at some time in our lives, like I was known to just run really wild shit. I would get that would be my kick, a
Hmm.
brand or something. I'm like, I'm gonna go run at 11 at night, or I'm gonna run at 2 in the morning just to do it, or just
Yeah.
because the streets are mine or whatever.
Right.
And she had mentioned, she's like, well, it's got to be nice, because she's like, as soon as the sun goes down, I'm not going anywhere outside. Like it's
Hmm.
just, and this is in like Venice. It's like I can't go running out there. I'm gonna get harassed or. And it was a big moment of pause where I was like, wow, yeah, I haven't had to deal with that, and that
Yeah.
definitely impacted me. Hearing it was like, wow, that's, what could we do to maybe build a community of like, yeah, I don't know, sweepers and bikes, guys and stuff. Yeah, I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
again, until you're touching and being out there and taking that first step, getting out the door, meeting community, it's like, how do we know these stories? How do we not know that somebody feels a deficit or wishes they could,
Hmm.
those really stupid phrasing, but you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No, it makes sense.
But the more you're out there and touching and feeling, the more you can, process these things and try to make yourself feel better and hopefully offer some help if you're in a position to, aid a community in a way or whatever. It's just running.
Just running. Running. Which actually kind of leads me to
Just
my
running. I'm looking at Patagonia. Just fucking
yeah.
running. It's weird.
That kind of leads me into the last question. I didn't know if we are gonna have time, but we do. So the biggest piece of advice, like there's so much, like I was saying, like there's so much content out there. There's so much shit we're fed all the time. What's like the one piece of advice that you would give to someone that was looking to give running a shot? Like you're not going to read this in Runner's World. You're not going to find this on some get ready with me with an influencer. This is you stripped down brass tacks.
Damn, man. That's some really good ones.
Fighting.
It's supposed to be easier, man. You're supposed to ask the really simple.
So, what's your favorite shoe?
Just get out and go, put on some shoes. And
Right.
there's so much of that. But I guess kind of a two-parter.
Yeah.
When I think finding a coach, a good coach is important. I find myself telling other people that and not positioning myself as that, whatever Instagram or whatever the hell else. I'm not that. I know a lot about it, but you have
Right.
to kind of pull it out of me, and I might just spit some knowledge, but I've been gifted that. I was just talking to Blue a few weeks ago and what he's dealing with Rad and that upstart. And he was just so big with me because I think there's more of a journalistic brain that I have, especially my approach to film and needing to touch things. I just don't have the imagination or imaginary imaginative bandwidth to just
Hmm.
go and so I would ask him every question, every stupid question, and just the sweetheart of a guy. I think it was before I actually was like with him actually coaching. It was just like he was giving me a plan and stuff. But
Sure.
I was like, that was just so critical, like
Yeah.
every dumb little thing. And I like how he put it. And this would be more the sound bite. He's like, you get a coach when you play baseball as a kid. You get a coach when you're playing football. It's like for some reason nobody ever thinks you need a coach to run. Just because you have two legs and can walk, you think you can run and do it right. And I say that because I think the biggest worry, especially with, I mean, luckily I haven't been influenced as much, I suppose, on Instagram, but for those that are being impressed upon, and it's easy to be impressed upon because there's a lot of people like its proliferation are just so good at doing this stuff that I'm like,
Right.
that injury that'll inevitably come is unlike any injury which I've had, is
Mhm.
unlike anything you'll ever deal with. And it's not just physical, it becomes mental. You didn't realize how much of your spirit and just everything that we've touched about, this filament that we're kind of kicking on, which I don't even know, it's dark. It gets
Yep.
super dark. So just
Mhm.
do it right from the jump. Spend a little money. Avoid the PT that you'll eventually have to deal with. Maybe they could tell you something about some shoes that'll be good. Learn about the shoes, the good and the bad, through injuries or what didn't work for you.
Yeah.
Um, so that for sure. But then also find a club, especially if you're brand new to it and just running curious. Find a club because you're going to meet that other thing that you could say, like, I identify with that person, or I want that smoke. That guy looks like a lunatic. Wow, did he just drink a beer and take off? Or this
Yeah.
person is running their first mile, or they just did it 2 weeks ago and now I'm here and they're cozying up to me.
Yeah.
So having that, I think, is awesome. That'd be the two-parter.
Yeah.
Find a good coach, connect with a run club, and let that awesome group think and energy just take over.
Yeah, you immediately take a perceived solo sport to a community event or a team sport right away. I think that's a really interesting distinction that I've not really heard before. So, um, dude, I can't thank you enough for this conversation. I think that there's so many so many good points that you
Oh,
raised,
come on, man.
and I think just giving me a lot to think about. And I think the community here too is going to really take something away from this. I want to leave time for some shout outs. Who got you where you are? Who do you want to thank today? Who's just yeah.
Oh my God. LA community as a whole, man. People in LA are amazing. The good with the bad. Like I've met so many people that are lifelong friends. And again, it's one of these things you pinching myself like I'm in Patagonia. My
Yeah.
mom is from Argentina. That's been a bucket list of mine since I was a teenager to get back to Argentina or to come to Argentina. And it's who knows if it would ever happen.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's
There's running
amazing.
that's taken me to all these crazy places. And so community for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, I will definitely let you know next time I'm in LA. Next time I'm down there, we're gonna run.
I would love it, man. I'd love
Cool.
it. So you asked some good ones, man. There's some great questions. So yeah,
Thanks. Well, thanks for
keep
being
on at
game
it
for
and
to answering
keep
them.
kicking ass, man.
All right, dude. I will chat with you soon, man. Thanks so much for your time today.
Five
Enjoy
thousand
Patagonia.
percent, dude.
All right.
Yes, be good.
All right.
Keep it running.
All right. Later, man.
Well, there's no altercation with sexist motivation. You're taking reservations for sexual frustration. Putting words inside of my mouth. Putting words inside of my mouth. I try to stop talking, but they keep coming out. I try to stop talking, but they keep coming out.